And hello, this is Eamonn O'Brien, and you're so welcome to the Reluctant Speakers Club Expert Series. And today we're going to talk about inspiring stories and how you can have your voice heard and build a community on the back of it. And I am delighted to have an awesome guest sitting in our chair. She's actually from Galway, but joining us all the way from, I hope, sunny Seattle today. It's Jill Holst. Jill, hello, how are you?
Hi, Eamon. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastically. So, Jill, for people who don't know you, I'll give them a quick bit of background. You are the CEO of My Kids Time, which .com, of course, which is, I guess, the resource for parents who are looking for interesting things to do with their kids. And you've done something quite remarkable. You have built a fan base on Facebook of over 500,000, which is utterly awesome.
Yes, it's been an exciting journey as well, even I have to say, and lots of interesting learning on social media as we went to. So it started actually almost 9 years ago now in Galway in the west of Ireland. And it was a listings directory originally, and it was the kind of business that started out of personal need. Trying to find out where ballet classes took place. I actually followed little girls in ballet dresses down the road, which luckily I was a woman. um,
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and thought there must be a better way of finding out this information. And the other parent, Michelle, Davitt, and myself, who started the website, said, well, let's try it online, because then you can quickly change it versus printing something. So we'll make an online resource. And it really grew from there. So it started off with this kind of idea of local listings for things to do. So maybe events at the weekend, or things for your child to do, or things to do together with your child. So we've kind of kept that as the core as we've expanded the business.
Yeah. And so tell me, obviously, you started off where this came out of necessity and then you were thinking, oh, this is interesting. But when you were trying to build out the idea, how did you go about winning attention and I suppose building community?
Yeah, so, well, social media had kind of come along around 2010, 2011. And the funny thing was, so we started an emailing list early on, because we said to ourselves, well, how many times are you actually going to come and look at listings? And what we really should do is write content based on those listings. So if you have 10 fun places to go with your child as an article, that's very easy for the parent to read and scan that versus looking up 10 listings, basically. So actually early on we wrote articles. We weren't very good at it to start with, and that took a little bit of refinement. And we had an email list. So we did start to build a community, but email is still a very pushy thing, isn't it? You're pushing out your content and then people are choosing to click and come to your site. So when social media came along, we looked at this thing called social media that everybody was talking about. And I remember I had a conversation with a guy who's in Dublin at the time, and he said, oh, you should look at Facebook. And I was like, Facebook? That's just a student thing. He said, no, the biggest growth area on Facebook is the 25 up. And when I looked at it then, and I thought, actually, it kind of makes sense, because when people have kids, they sort of lose their social life that they had when they
Tell me
didn't have
about it.
kids. Yes, and Facebook has become, for a lot of parents, a way of keeping connected with parents, and also family, obviously, and friends that move and go elsewhere. And also our communities have changed so much. We used to always live in the same neighborhood and grew up there, and our kids grew up there. People travel now with work, and things have changed a lot. So Facebook has become this way of people remaining connected with their own network. So we started the journey on Facebook in 2011, and made a lot of mistakes along the way, as you do. But I think part of the reason that we've had, well, I know the reason that we've had so much success on Facebook is down to three or four key things. So one of them is consistency.
Yes.
So and consistency in particular in your brand voice. So what do I mean by brand voice is it's really the tone and the language that you use when you post content on social media. And I think then another key thing is we sort of figured out what parents like, and we looked at what they liked. So you use your analytics and your insights, and if they like one thing, then the chances are they'll like something similar to that.
Yes.
So you sort of realize then there are key content areas that they enjoy. Everybody likes humor about parenting because it's a tough job.
Yep.
So
No
any
rules. And the pay is terrible.
yes, the pay is terrible. But the rewards. So the other thing is parents are very soppy and emotional about children because they love them to bits. And because it is a tough job, they appreciate the rewards side of things. And I think then there are other elements of content that we've managed to, as we grew our social media, we also worked really hard on a specific content strategy and a visual content strategy as well, actually, in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And tell me though, obviously you've done a lot of things right, and I'm guessing there have been occasions where you've had to say, "Whoops." So in building a community, and if you like, the word of mouth, if you were thinking about the "well, I won't do that again" a box, what would be in that cupboard?
So, well, the first mistake we made was, and I believe there are still businesses doing that, is being profile rather than page. And of course, that was early on, that was in 2011. So, I still come across businesses who think it's okay to be, friends, use a friend profile. So that's a big no-no. Now, I think it's happening less and less. I think for us, it's how to deal with negative comments. Now, we're quite fortunate because we aren't running a service business. We're literally just an information website, so we can just push out lots of different information, and it's not like a bank or a business where if somebody has some bad customer service, they're going to tell you about it. But that's not to say we haven't had negative comments. So one of the things is to learn and to have a kind of an internal policy on how you're going to deal with that, and I think that's sometimes why businesses are afraid of social media, is they don't really know, well, what happens if we get negative feedback. But if somebody's saying it to you, then you can bet your bottom dollar there are 100 people saying it elsewhere, because only so many people are going to take the effort to say it directly to the brand as well. So it's really important to address, kind of be able to handle and know about negative feedback. I think another mistake that we made early on, we sort of watched what competitors were doing, and it's important to keep an eye on your competitors, but you can't be them, you have to be different. So we tried to copy some of the things they did because we saw they worked, and they fell flat in the face. So we were going, how come that didn't work? Well, because we have a different community and we have a different type of person that connects with us versus a competitor.
Yeah.
So you do have to watch what your competitors are doing, but you have to be different at the end of the day. So you have to find your own voice there.
No, and I think you've done an awesome job in that. And actually, that kind of brings us neatly on to the next kind of element of this conversation. And you and I were chatting recently about how, because things are changing online and the way that people are consuming things, and more things are now done through mobile, and people are reading less. They tend to look at stuff, they tend to watch things, they tend to listen to it. And so we're talking about the role of speaking to groups in communities or elsewhere, or creating video or creating podcasts. And a lot of this revolved around the notion of having a more personal conversation, I suppose, with your community. Why is that something that you think might hold appeal for you?
Well, I think what I've always enjoyed about social media is that you are having a two-way conversation. But it changes all the time, social media. So you have to continually evolve your way of communication. At the end of the day, you're communicating to your community, whether it's prospective customers, or in our case, the visits to our website generate revenue because advertisers want to reach those parents. So for us, an important thing is to get the community to visit our website. But regardless of whether you're a business that wants to reach out to prospective customers, how you talk to them and the content you share bottom line, we've always said whatever we share with them has to be useful to them in some way, or amuse or engage emotions, obviously. But ideally, it should be something that helps them in their life, because that gives them trust in the brand. They know you're not just trying to sell them something. They feel affinity with you because you've helped them with their life. So what's interesting now with the way social media is evolving, and I'm learning this all now, is how do you move towards live streaming? How do you video things? How do you share content in a different way? So we've been really good in the last few years, Eamonn, at writing articles that parents want to read, and they come
Yeah.
and read. But our attention spans apparently are getting shorter. I still think there's room for written content, but you have to integrate video now better, and you have to realize that people are, at the end of the day, actually, whether they're parents or not, we're all busy, and our attention can be grabbed a million ways. So how do you stand out there? I still think the way you stand out and build brand trust is by offering that value in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely that. And I think one of the things that might be especially interesting for your community is the opportunity to hear more things. Because interestingly, I was listening to a podcast just last week by Mark Schaefer and his pal Tom something, whose name, Mark and Companion is the name of the podcast. And they were talking about how we've moved towards Snapchat and how we're moving towards other things because people want to feel more connected with other people. But also they're talking about the rise and rise of podcasts, to the extent that now 100 million people, just shy of 100 million people in America have now tried podcasting. And more than 1 in 5 are now listening on a regular basis. And that means lots and lots and lots. So obviously people are, changing their habits, and it's almost like the box set syndrome. People do things now in batches or binges. And so
that's an interesting idea. Yeah, you're right. That's changed. Like, if you think about it, the way that we used to watch TV programs, it was once a week and you waited till the next episode came. You're right. The consumption of that type of content. And I suppose what you think with podcasting, so here's a challenge for a business owner, is you sort of think, oh, but I'm not an expert. But you are, because you offer a service or have made a product, again, that solves a problem. And can you write a series of information, again, adding value to your prospective customer that you want to reach around that topic? One of the great examples that's out there in terms of social media marketing is the pool guy. You've heard of him, Eamonn?
Oh, no. Tell me about the pool guy.
So the pool guy, I've forgotten his name and where he is in America, but basically he sold swimming pools, and the business was not doing very well. And social media was just kind of in its infancy. And he started this thing where customers were asking him, or people were asking him questions all the time. So every business gets questions from their customers. And he just started turning them into content. So here's a blog post about how to clean your pool. And wrote that answer, and then that became a piece of content. So every business can do that. They can take questions as a starting point from their customers and turn them into bits of content, and that could be a short podcast then. And I think what was interesting at the Social Media Summit in Ireland, a few weeks back, was Steve Dotto talking about YouTube. Yes. And how the second most biggest search engine now in the world.
And almost, and will be shortly, the number one.
Yes, so people are actually going on to YouTube to search rather than Google now. And, if you've got a short video clip, again, around the pain point that they're looking to solve, then you've more chance, and you tag it well and look at it. So I'd recommend Steve Dotto. He has a whole load of interesting tutorials on how to do that well.
Yeah, so I think that could be an interesting one, because obviously you can even involve parents in things, you can involve other people. There's so many different aspects in that. So it could be an interesting one to delve into. And the other thing, of course, is speaking more regularly can also be something, in schools and communities and elsewhere is great for developing relationships. But on that front, actually, when it comes to people that connect with you, And you know, you were talking about the social media event that you were at recently. Uh,
Mm.
at that event or other events, have you heard speakers recently where you thought, "Ah, that's really interesting. They've latched onto something I think will be really important to growing my community and having a better story down the line"?
Well, I mean, where to start, because there were so many good speakers at the social media summit recently. But I think that I suppose what seems to be a common theme amongst them all is you can use social media and content to start a conversation, and you can even have a two-way conversation there. But nothing works better than the actual offline relationship, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Um,
Yeah, and actually,
so
to that point, Jill. Again, going back to Mark Schaefer, who I interviewed last year, he has a really interesting book called "Breaking the Code." It's the content code, and he did. He came across. He cited an extraordinary example. He decided he would do a bit of fundraising. There were some at need children, and so he managed to raise over $6,000 in a week. Now that's really impressive. And he just
yeah,
put out a few appeals and great reaction from that. What was interesting, though, was that he also got lots of his pals, and he would be terribly well connected, to put out lots of appeals. So he reckoned he had about 3 million impressions out there. And he looked at the figures afterwards to see who had given him money. And of the 90 odd people who had given him money, just one of them came in through some way that somebody else had helped him. But the vast majority of the money, as in, I can't remember, was it 90%, but certainly a very high percentage, came from people that he didn't just know online, but had met.
the meeting, the personal
The
relationship.
meeting, the
Yeah,
personal relationship.
yeah.
So,
So I think that when you're a business owner, the social media and the content are really important for building the relationships, but they're not the only thing that you need to do. So it's getting a virtual or a virtuous, cycle going, and a virtual cycle going, where you write, content or produce content, whether it's podcast or video or an article or blog post or something that helps people, then use your social media to talk to them, to push that content out, to kind of get feedback. But at the end of the day, when you want to close sales, people buy from people, don't they?
absolutely, and for their own reasons. So all of those things are true, and maybe actually that's a good point at which to round out, because a lot of this is about the connection to people. So if you were thinking about all the things that you've done over the n number of years building out this wonderful community of yours, is there any one thing more than others that you now know that you wish you had known at the outset?
That's a tough question. I noticed a lot of people when we're having conversations now, they go, "That's a good question." It's to give them breathing space, isn't it? That's a tough question, Eamon. If there's one thing that I wish I'd known, I think it's having the confidence in your own voice and realizing that that is that you can be authentic. I go back to this thing about copying other people. You can't
You
copy.
shouldn't, you mustn't.
And you mustn't, and you need to be different. But I think people lack confidence in their own story. They lack confidence in their own ability somehow when it comes to social media, and they think, oh, what am I going to say? I mean, one thing that has stood us in good stead is always having a plan for our social media and our content, so we know about a month in advance at least what we're going to post out, because you can't run a business and manage your social media easily without a plan. But part of that is really knowing and having confidence that your voice is worth it, and that people will listen to you. It does feel a little bit like tumbleweeds passing when you start on social media.
Yes, well, or you're almost kind of like the child who's listening to the conch, and you're saying, "Oh, is anybody in there? Oh, maybe there is. I can hear something."
Yeah, but again, consistency. So building a plan and consistently posting high quality content, using your social media channels to do that builds the community. The community starts to expect, it's like anything, once you get the first customer, they'll go tell other people, oh, have you followed them or have you read their blog? So, get your own. I think there's another thing that I wish I'd sort of thought of earlier or known or realized earlier in our business, was going to your existing customers and saying, how can I help you be our brand advocate? What can I do to reward you? Sometimes it's asking them to do that.
Yep, what a splendid idea.
Would you be so kind as, if you enjoy our content, pass this email on? There's lots of ways you can do that. So having confidence in your voice, just to recap, and going out again to use your customers, your brand advocates, to do that marketing for you, will start that cycle. And then once you're consistent, you will build a community on foot of that.
Yeah, no, listen, I think that's a very, very good advice and a terrific way in which to end. And actually, Jill, can I thank you for taking time out of your vacation over in sunny Seattle to join with me today. And can I say to you, the viewers, thank you indeed for watching again today. And until the next time, here's to awesome speaking.